Welcome back to Cask in Point. Today we are on part 2 of trying every single Stagg Junior batch ever. Now, last week we tried batches 23A, 23B, and 23C, and 23A easily won that flight, but I have a good feeling that none of them are really going to hold up to a lot of the batches that are before them, and today we're trying the 3 batches before them, which were batches 18, 22A, and 22B. Now, if you don't know a ton about Stagg Junior, I'll give a little bit of history in the beginning of all of these videos. Essentially, Buffalo Trace and Tea Collection. It's amazing. It was released in 2000. They had William Louis Weller, they had Sazerac 18, they had Eagle Rare 17. Now, George T. Stagg ends up joining the lineup in 2002. It's a 15-year bourbon that's around 140 proof and just absolutely amazing. Sells online for around $700, even though its MSRP is $125. And so really, you cannot find this in the store. You cannot get this for a good price. And those that do, you're very lucky, and I envy you greatly. But after 2002, George T. Stagg released every single year with the Buffalo Trace and Tea Collection, and in 2013, Buffalo Trace decided that they were going to release Stagg Junior. Now, Stagg Junior is a very similar idea. Very similar flavor profile, the same exact mash bill, but instead of being 15 years, it's 8 to 9 years old. And it's around 130 proof, and the 10 proof will be gained over the course of those 6 years because water will evaporate from the whiskey, which will increase its proof. But this is around 130 proof. And as of today, in September of 2024, they've released 24 batches of Stagg Junior. Obviously, we tried 3 in the last video. We're going to try 3 today. And then in the further videos, we'll probably do flights of 4 or 5 to get the rest of them done. But Stagg Junior, it's a lot of fun. And the last time I have to tell this part of the spiel, which is that Stagg used to be very normal with their releases. They had batch 1 in 2013, and then after that they released 2 batches every single year through batch 17 in 2021. Then some weird stuff happened with good old batch 18 that I have here. So they decided to remove the junior from the label. And when they removed the junior from the label, apparently they had already received a bunch of glass bottles that had the junior on them. And they decided, no, we want to remove the junior, we want to rebrand Stagg Junior as just Stagg. And so they waited and waited until they got the right glass jars. Now, this was obviously COVID, it was 2022, and so it was very difficult for them to get these bottles, and ultimately, batch 18, which was supposed to be released in the spring of 2022, doesn't end up getting released until the winter of 2022. And the weirder thing here is that actually batch 22A is still not ready, which should have released immediately after that, because they also decided to rebrand them. Instead of it being batch 19, it's batch 22A, and so they end up having batch 22B released in the winter of 2022, and batch 22A actually released in early spring 2023. Very weird stuff. And then obviously after that, they have Stagg Junior 23s, 23A, B, and C, all released in 2023. So there's actually 4 batches in 2023, even though it's supposed to be 2, or it has been 2. And they claim that they're going to do 3 from now on, but 24A released in the summer of 2024. We don't know. We'll see. Essentially, that's Stagg Junior. Today we're trying the 3 weird batches. These batches were released around 2 to 3 months apart in most areas, and actually a lot of areas just got these from the exact same time from the distributors. So these are, in theory, the closest Stagg batches that we should have, and they're actually very similar in proof. We have 22A as the highest proof at 132.2, and then batch 18 is 131, and batch 22B is 130 on the dot. So actually, pretty close in proof there. They're all, the average is around 130. So 22B is around standard, and the other 2 are a little bit high for, the past of Stagg batches. But that's a lot of talk on Stagg Junior. Let's drink some Stagg Junior here. We're going to start with batch 22A, and I did put these in the order of batch 18, then 22A, then 22B, and I just thought that's how they meant to release them, and that's how I'll do it. And so I'll make sure that someplace on your screen you could tell what batches we are, because technically this isn't how they were released. I just don't think it makes sense how they were released. But that's a lot of talking. Let's drink some Stagg. On the nose here, there's a ton of caramel with a lot of rye spice as well. There's some cherry, but not as much as on, I would say, an average Stagg batch. Some creaminess, some butteriness to it. A little bit of musty oak, a little bit of, kind of dry oak, a little bit of sweet oak. Overall, it smells great. It's Stagg Junior. They're all going to smell great. But let's try batch 18 here and see how good it is. It's a great batch. The cherries are everywhere. The flavor fills your mouth. There's so much spice on this one, but there's still a little bit of cherry, enough oak that it reminds you that it's Stagg. That finish is at least medium. I would even say it's probably medium long. Take a second sip here just to really confirm. That's good stuff. That's better than all the 23s already. And I have a pretty good feeling that for the next few videos, they're just going to get better and better. And then the first few videos are going to get funky because people say that batches 1 through 8 were really bad. So we'll see. But no, this is a great batch. This is actually the first batch that I ever bought after the 22A. So the 22A here I bought in California. It was my first time visiting California, and I had negotiated with the store owner. It was my first ever allocated bottle. And then I bought a 22B and a batch 18 together a few months later in March, and I actually saved a lot of money on it because I paid $200 for the 22A, but I paid $150 for the batch 18. It's the only time I've ever seen Stagg at $150. It's only ever been 200 or 300 or 1,000 sometimes because people are crazy. Please don't pay that for Stagg Junior. But I mean, this is a great batch. It's you know, I'm a big fan of it. It's the one Stagg Junior that I have opened. You know, obviously I have almost every batch in samples, and I have a million samples here. But I don't have that many bottles that are actually open. But I do enjoy some batch 18 every now and then. I've had a lot of it, and it's just so good. I'll take another sip here, and then we'll move on to 22A. It's a great batch. It's a spicier batch than normal, but there's enough caramel there. I think it's caramel and spice are the primary ingredients here. And then there's some cherry, there's some musty oak, there's a little bit of dry oak. There's kind of a lingering pepper flavor. I'd say that's a solid medium finish on that one. Very good batch. I think totally in par with I would say it's probably on level with 24A and better than all of the 23s. But let's move on to 22A. Now, if you don't know that much about Stagg Junior and the lore of all the batches, 22A is very highly sought after. It doesn't actually command any extra secondary. It usually sells for retail around the exact same, but people like it a lot more, which is part of the reason why I'm doing this series, to show you all that these batches, while they're generally pretty close, some batches are much, much better than others. And if 22A is really that good, well, you know, we're going to find out today. But get these batches. Just because it says Stagg on it doesn't mean you should spend $200. There are still good batches and bad batches, like there is with everything. So let's get into 22A here and just see what the hype is all about. Yeah, on the nose there. I mean, there's so much cherry and musty oak. There's some caramel, a lot less spice on this one. But man, that is fruity. Fruity with a ton of oak. I mean, that is really nice. And a little bit of like earthiness to it, but not a ton. Stagg tends to, you know, sometimes have a lot of earthy flavors, which I don't mind. I think it's just an extra element. And as long as it's like a tertiary element to the cherries and the oak and the spice, I don't mind it. But I don't like when the earthiness is too strong like it was on 23B. But yeah, I mean, that just smells incredible. Let's try it and just see how good it is. Look, it's a great day because we're drinking a ton of Stagg Junior. But that is a great batch. There's tons of cherry on it. There's oak. It's not that much better than the batch 18, if I'm being honest. I actually remember that 22A being much better than 18, but it's a lot closer today. But it's very good. I mean, it's super solid. You're getting all the Stagg flavors you could possibly want. I mean, you have the fruit, you have the caramel, you have the oak, you have the rice spice. The finish on this one is probably around medium. I want to see if I can, I'll take a second sip, see if it's medium or medium long. But that's usually where Stagg will fall. I mean, if it's a short to medium or medium, pretty, you know, short to medium is shorter for Stagg. I think Stagg tends to average around medium length, which for a $60 bottle is very impressive. I mean, a long finish requires something like 13th Colony Double Oaked, or, you know, maybe there's George C. Stagg here. So I'm never really expecting long out of anything other than, you know, $500 bottles. But the fact that this is getting pretty much medium long is really, really impressive here. But let's take a second sip and then move on to 22B. That's great. The spice really fills your mouth on that second sip. There's a lot less spice on the first sip, but I think it's a little bit more fruity than batch 18, and that finish is slightly longer. I'd say they're probably both medium, but they're actually a lot closer than I remember, which is interesting here. I mean, that is really good. Definitely really liking that one. But let's go to 22B. Again, 22B is a 130 proofer here. Again, a very solid batch. I've only actually had about half an ounce of this one, so I don't remember that much about it, but I remember I liked it. I liked it more than 23B, but let's see how it stacks up to these two others. And again, this one was released like, in most markets, it was released the exact same time as batch 18, even though it was supposed to be a full year really afterwards. But I mean, people really liked it though, so let's see. A lot more earthiness on the nose there. I mean, there's still a little bit of cherry and oak, but there's a ton of like earthiness. There's some herbal flavors, pretty similar to 23B here on that. And a good amount of caramel. You know, the flavors on this one, I don't like them as much as the other two. I don't know, let's try it and see. Yeah, I mean, that's going to lose today. It's not bad, but I think it's a lot less fruity and much more earthy. And while I don't mind some earthiness, I don't like stag batches as much when they're super earthy. I tend to like the fruitier or spicier batches than the really earthy ones. Again, it's not bad, but I think I mean, these are all going to be around an 8. I think Stagg Junior is a very good standard for an average batch being right around that 8 weekly sipper level. And it's good. It is very good, but it's not comparing to these other two legends here. And again, that kind of means that if they're going to cost you the same, if you're going to really go out and get them, like if you can get any of these for $60 MSRP, buy them all. Buy them all. Buy 3, send me 1. Okay, then you can see the other. I'm not going to be selfish. Okay, you can keep 2 for yourself. Send me 1. But I mean, this is just they're all good. They're all really good. But not all stag batches were created equal. And yeah, this one's definitely a little bit worse. I'm thinking it's even worse than 23A, but beats 23B and 23C. We will be doing a blind of my favorite few batches after the series is done, so that is going to be a lot of fun, and we're really going to find out what the best Stagg Junior batch is ever. It's not going to be 22B, but 22B is going to be in the bottom half, might even be in the bottom quarter, but let's take one more sip here, then we're going to rate it, and then we'll go back and we'll rate everything, and we'll compare it with the 2023s. It's good. What's holding it together is that it does have a medium finish, like the others. And there is a lot of flavor on that. I feel like I like the profile of 23C slightly more, but I think this finish is a little bit longer. I'd rate them around the same. I think this is a 7.8 right here. I think it's solid. It's worthy of being $60. But I wouldn't pay $150 for that. I wouldn't pay $200 for that. I wouldn't really pay any secondary on that one. It's good, but I just think I've tried 2 batches here that are a decent bit better, and I think they're both going to be above an 8. So 22B is going to lose today, unfortunately. And I will take one more sip here just because it's just so good. I want to share this with you guys. But there is a loser in Stagg Junior when you're just comparing Stagg Junior to Stagg Junior, and it almost feels wrong to say that this is the loser because it's still Stagg, but it is definitely worse than the other two. Yeah, it's more earthy. And there's caramel. There is a little bit of cherry that's really coming out, but the earthiness is definitely taking over a little bit more. It's not like pure herbal funk like 23B was. It's definitely a lot better than 23B. But I don't love it in a way that I think I like the more fruity, spicy flavors. There's almost no spice on this one. It's earthy and it's fruity. So it's okay, but there is better. All right, let's move on to 22A and let's give it a rating here. I initially thought that this one was going to be the easy winner. And typically when I do these flights, I haven't tried any of these yet, but for the first few videos of Stagg, I have tried every Stagg batch up since batch 11. And so I do already have a lot of my thoughts made up on these bottles, but I did want to share them with you guys. And maybe they've changed in the last few months. But so far, I thought that one was going to be last. I thought this one was going to be in first. So let's see if that still holds up here. Yeah, I mean, there's so much fruit in musty oak. And if you didn't know, I love musty oak. I love like tasting and smelling like I'm having 15-year-old whiskey. It's super refined. It really is the polar opposite of kind of cheap, like grainy, corny whiskeys that, you know, are going to be like most of your 2 to 5 to 7 year whiskeys that are on the market. And Stagg Junior really does a good job on their good batches of avoiding that. Even though, I mean, 8 years isn't super long, but at cask strength and, you know, aged properly, 8 years gives you plenty in Kentucky. So I'm glad that we really get that on Stagg Junior. But let's try this 22A and let's give it a rating. Oh my God. Fruit and spice fill the mouth. There's some caramel. There's a little bit of oak. There isn't nearly as much musty oak on the palate, which is a little bit unfortunate, but that just fills your mouth with flavor. That is so, so good. That's an 8.2. That's better than any 2023. That's better than 24A. It's honestly probably going to be better than most of the batches in probably most of the next few videos. I mean, that is really a contender for top 5 and a contender for possibly being in the flight that we'll do with like probably the top 3 to top 5 you know, after the series is done. That is so good right there. And it's the fact that it's giving you both a good palate and a long enough finish, because we are going to try some Stagg Junior batches soon. You know, I'm thinking of like batch 17, for example, where the flavor profile, from what I remember, is incredible, but the proof at 128, you feel like really every proof point on Stagg you feel. 128 tastes like 128, 129 tastes like 129, 132 tastes like 132 on most Stagg batches. And so the fact that this is 132, you're feeling the 132, but I do wish that, you know, there are better flavor profiles out there, is really what I'm trying to say here. But let's, I will take another sip just because, again, I want to enjoy this with you guys. It's really good stuff. I mean, I love Stagg, and it's always a treat when I get to enjoy like 4 or 5 ounces of Stagg with you guys. These were all a little bit more than an ounce, if you couldn't tell. And, you know, if I don't finish them, I'll finish them off camera. But it's always a good day when you have that much Stagg. Amazing. Amazing. 8.2. Amazing. So good. Let's move on to batch 18. I'm getting like a cherry candy note now on that one. Like the fruit has developed where it's like really, really sweet. And it's like a mix of that with caramel. And it's actually almost honey on that one. Honey with a little bit of red fruit and a little bit of, you know, there's a ton of spice, a little bit of oak. Man, 22A is seriously a good batch. Let's go back to 18 here. Yeah, I mean, this one is going to be more caramel forward than the other two, where I think we had more of an earthy and fruity on this one. You know, on 22B here. On 22A, we're getting fruity with a bit more oak, and then, you know, some like really good fruit, whereas this one is more caramel. And there's still some of that red fruit. There's still some of that musty oak and dry oak and sweet oak, but there's a lot less of it. But there is a lot of this butter and cream that, you know, I get on red wines, but I don't typically get on a lot of whiskeys. I get on like some of the Four Roses single barrel strains get it. Like, you know, the V yeast strain, the OBSV and the OESV tend to get a lot of it, which is amazing, and I love them. I think probably when you're watching this, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, I just finished up the Four Roses single barrel strength videos. Check those out, and you know, you'll see how much I like the V yeast strains. But yeah, I mean, that is really nice here. I'll take a sip of water, and then we'll rate this and see how it stacks up against the crowd. So good. I mean, it's an easy ranking. It's not as good. The finish is not as long. I'd say 22B is medium, 18 is medium. I don't think this is medium long, but if I had to rate them on a 1 to 10 scale, I would like add an extra point or half a point for 22A. It is slightly longer. And again, it's 1 to 2 extra, you know, 1 proof point higher than the 18, 2 proof points higher than the 22B. It makes sense that it's a little bit more, but the flavor profile is good. It's just, I wish I got a little bit more of it overall. It's a great batch. I mean, that is a batch I'd pay $100 for. It's a batch I'd pay, I paid $150 plus I paid $160 for this bottle. I don't hate that I paid that much. I did actually see it again after that a few months later for that price in the same store, and I passed on it. And I don't regret that I passed on it. I think one bottle is plenty of this at $160. I really don't think it's one to stock up on, but it's a great batch. I think, this was like, the last fight. This is an easy one. I think they'll be a little more complicated as we get further down the line, especially with the early batches. But so far, these later batches, I mean, some of them are really good. Some of them kind of suck. But to be clear, I mean, 23, B, 23C were the worst two. 22B is probably, right with them, but a little bit better than them. Then I'd rank 23A, and then I think batch 18 beats all the 23s, and batch 22A beats batch 18. So that's the rankings. We've done 6. Those are the rankings of all of them. Very good stuff, and I'll add in 24A since I did the single review, and we'll do a fight on that one when we have 24s and 25s and stuff. But I guess that's kind of part 1 of the series. But I'll rank all of those there, somewhere on your screen, or you've already seen it, whatever. But that's Stagg Junior Batch 18, 22A, and 22B. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Enjoy some Stagg Junior, and I'll catch you all in the next one.